Accompanied by a large security detail, the president arrived at the crash site of the unidentified aircraft and was startled by what he saw. The long-anticipated aliens had finally made their appearance. He immediately ordered the area to be cordoned off and the alien bodies to be transported back to the military base. The scene then shifts to 1963 when Eisenhower is no longer the president. He meets with a man who is actually the future President Nixon. Their conversation reveals that Eisenhower is going to meet with the incumbent President Kennedy to inform him about aliens, and most importantly, about a treaty that Americans had signed with the aliens. They then proceed to the White House to meet President Kennedy and hand over all the information about the aliens. Kennedy, after reviewing the material, is visibly upset. He is initially skeptical of what he sees, but above all, he cannot accept the treaty that allows Americans to be abducted and experimented on by aliens. Eisenhower explains that it is the sacrifice of these 5,000 people per year that allows the U.S. government to obtain advanced technology from the aliens, ensuring the safety of 190 million Americans. Afterward, Kennedy sought out his lover, Marilyn Monroe, and vented to her about the alien situation. To his surprise, Marilyn took the news quite lightly. It turned out she had known about such matters all along and had even experienced them firsthand. Monroe kept encouraging the president to go public with the alien affair, to let the American people know the truth. A few days later, in the dead of night, Eisenhower received an urgent call from Nixon. Nixon had heard that President Kennedy was gathering support to disclose the alien matter. Such a disclosure would have a very negative impact on Eisenhower and their Republican Party. They resolved that they must find a way to deal with the situation. A few days on, while Eisenhower was having breakfast with his wife Mamie, suddenly a news bulletin interrupted the television program. President Kennedy had been assassinated on the street. It seemed that Kennedy's death was facilitated by Eisenhower and Nixon to avoid making the alien intrusion public. The scene shifts to 9 years earlier, picking up where the last episode in 1954 left off. President Eisenhower, having encountered aliens earlier, is now in discussion with others about whether to sign a treaty drafted by the aliens. By now, everyone should know that the treaty involves trading human beings for alien technology. As the debate ensues, Maria, the alien who transformed, suddenly appears in the office. She states that she senses some resistance among the group, and to show goodwill, she brings a gift. She places a box on the table, which opens to reveal something resembling modern fiber optics. While this represents advanced technology for the Americans present, there are still those who stand in opposition, calling it a trap and even attempting to shoot the alien. The alien continues to explain that their world is on the verge of destruction and they need to find a new home. Earth, however, is unsuitable due to the presence of viruses, which is why they are creating hybrids of humans and aliens through experiments. Back at home, Eisenhower remains deeply conflicted about signing the treaty. Meanwhile, Mamie encourages him to sign, arguing that if the United States doesn't, the aliens will turn to the Soviets. Eisenhower, however, insists on giving it more thought to see if there is another way. The next day, Mamie brings in Vice President Nixon and shows him all the information about the aliens. After reviewing the files, Nixon is visibly sweating and wipes his brow with a handkerchief from the table. Mamie directly asks Nixon to help persuade Eisenhower. Nixon, with ambitions to be president one day, knows he can't let President Eisenhower be ruined by the current situation. He quickly goes to Eisenhower and tirelessly works to convince him to sign the treaty. As Eisenhower wonders how Nixon even knows about this, he notices the handkerchief in Nixon's hand. Confronting his wife, Eisenhower angrily asks why she told Nixon about the matter. The more she pushes for the treaty, the more suspicious he becomes. Out of options and angry, Mamie's voice changes, her eyes turn pure white, and she levitates. It turns out an alien has been inhabiting Mamie all along. The alien no longer hides its presence and directly threatens Eisenhower. If he doesn't sign the treaty, his wife will end up dying like Maria. The scene flashes back to 1954 during the presidency of Eisenhower. He was still grappling with the decision of whether to sign a treaty with the aliens. The alien script, resembling a mass of tadpoles, was showcased, possibly symbolizing the aliens' intention to integrate with humanity. After much deliberation, Eisenhower couldn't bring himself to sign the document. The aliens then presented a threat. If Americans didn't sign, they would offer their technology to the Soviet Union. Eisenhower questioned this, noting that signing could cost the lives of 5,000 Americans annually. Yet not signing might still lead to loss of American lives if the Soviets, strengthened by alien technology, became a major threat. The president reasoned that if signing or not signing the treaty both posed a threat to the lives of Americans, why was the treaty so imperative? The aliens clarified that the treaty served as a preventive measure. Should the Americans breach the agreement in the future, the aliens could publicly reveal the president's signature as evidence of a fair deal with the U.S. government, putting the onus of breach on the government. What's more, the treaty is a guarantee that the U.S. won't use alien technology against the aliens in the future. If Americans do turn alien technology against them, the aliens would have a justified reason to retaliate or even invade. This clause would serve as a legitimate pretext for the aliens to seize power in the future. Seeing the first threat ineffective, the aliens promptly resorted to a second one, which involved Eisenhower's wife. Mamie's eyes returned to normal, but blood began to stream from the corners, contorting her face in agony. Faced with this harrowing sight, Eisenhower felt compelled to sign the treaty. As soon as the aliens witnessed the successful signing, they promptly left Mamie's body. Fast forward to 3 years later in 1957. Since the aliens obtained the treaty, they had been abducting American citizens relentlessly, with a total of 298 abductions taking place. What infuriated President Eisenhower was the fact that, despite abducting so many people, the aliens had not responded with the advanced technology they had promised to the United States. Amid the complaints, the building began to shake, and a flash of white light streaked past the windows. The familiar child of the devil appeared, putting the entire White House on high alert. Possessing what seemed to be supernatural powers, the child of the devil could make guards fly away like Barbie dolls. He then made his way to the president's room to formally meet with Eisenhower. Introducing himself as Valiant Thor, he claimed to be the liaison sent by the aliens to communicate with the Americans. This ties into an urban legend about the real Valiant Thor, supposedly a Venusian who arrived on Earth in 1957 and met with President Eisenhower. Legend has it that each of his hands had 6 fingers, his heart was exceptionally large, and his blood, like that of an octopus, contained copper oxide. His mission on Earth was to persuade humans to abandon nuclear weapons and promise to provide new clean energy sources and other technologies in exchange. However, the U.S. government at the time, concerned about the economy, declined Thor's assistance. Thor continued to work at the Pentagon until he returned to Venus in 1960. Returning to the story, Thor's visit was to honor the promise made by the aliens. He opened his briefcase to reveal an iPod inside. Thor explained that it was a handheld computing device, far more powerful than the IBM model located in the Pentagon, known as the world's first computer and equipped with a touchscreen. He suggested that one day this device would herald a new era for humanity, perhaps the era of the iPhone. In the evening, Mamie had fallen asleep, and Eisenhower, reading the newspaper, read about a missing girl. At that moment, a strange noise came from the ventilation duct above him. Following the duct to the basement, behind a stack of boxes, he discovered a mysterious door. Accidentally, he activated a fingerprint device on the door which led to an elevator. Eisenhower descended 20 floors underground. As he exited the elevator, he heard a chicken scream. Approaching a window in a room, he was confronted by a man with a scarred face. Suddenly, Thor appeared and explained everything to Eisenhower. It turns out this place was where aliens conducted experiments, which had been established for several years to withstand nuclear radiation. Eisenhower was puzzled why he was not informed. Thor continued to explain that the aliens feared their true appearance might be too shocking for him, potentially causing him to terminate their treaty. Thor then showed Eisenhower many alien specimens, stating that these were in early developmental stages, created from a mix of human and alien genes, but they had not yet reached perfection. He mentioned that the place was now somewhat cramped. However, Eisenhower was troubled by what he had seen the night before, utterly surprised that aliens were conducting human experiments on American citizens. Mamie, seemingly unconcerned, suggested that since the aliens found the current space too cramped, they could be relocated to Nevada. Consequently, Eisenhower met with Thor and signed a new treaty, allotting land north of Las Vegas to the aliens for top-secret biological testing, naming the place Area 51. Afterwards, Eisenhower firmly told his staff that this matter must be kept absolutely confidential. The scene shifts to 5 years later in 1962 at the FBI headquarters. Eisenhower and Nixon are watching a video of Marilyn Monroe, whose appearance they feel is a bit offhand. In the video, Marilyn is revealing the dirty dealings between the government and the aliens. Nixon is explaining to Eisenhower the gravity of the situation, but it's clear from his tone that what he's most worried about is not Eisenhower. It's that if the scandal leaks, it could affect his next presidential campaign. Soon after, Marilyn is alone at home drinking when the power suddenly goes out. She moves towards the window, but then an alien appears behind her. Two men in black restrain her on the bed and force-feed her a whole bottle of sleeping pills from beside the bed, ensuring she would never wake up. This aligns with the real-life fact that Marilyn died from an overdose of sleeping pills. Afterwards, a drunk Nixon calls Kennedy to offer insincere condolences. Kennedy knows Nixon is involved in some way, but without evidence, he is powerless to act. Just as he's about to hang up, Nixon quickly reminds Kennedy to keep his mouth shut in the future and not to spill everything. A year later, in 1963, Nixon and Eisenhower, along with the then-President Johnson, arrived at Area 51. After greeting Johnson, Thor led the trio into their base. At that moment, the three men were stunned by the sight of an endless collection of alien specimens standing frozen on the spot. It seems the aliens aim to create perfect test subjects, indistinguishable in appearance from humans but able to communicate with alien minds. The scene shifts to Richard Nixon's presidency in 1972. At this time, a large number of Americans who opposed the Vietnam War gathered outside the White House. They were protesting Nixon's decision to increase troop deployments to Vietnam. Facing the throngs of anti-war demonstrators, an infuriated Nixon declares within the White House that the Vietnam War must be stopped. However, the alien liaison, Thor, counters by asserting that the war is of great importance to them. It turns out that the Vietnam War, instigated by the United States, was actually planned in conjunction with extraterrestrials. The purpose was to distract the American public with the war so that they would not notice the people being abducted by aliens and disappearing without a trace. An anxious Nixon quickly inquires when the aliens' experiments would be completed. Thor indicates that they anticipate their first perfect test subject will be created in 2021, 50 years later. Of course, everyone knows that the Vietnam War could not possibly last for 50 years, so the clever aliens had already prepared a slew of other distractions to divert the attention of the American public in the future. After Thor's departure, Nixon's aide, Henry Kissinger, suddenly feels discomfort in his eye. He rushes outside, and it becomes apparent that the skin at the corner of Kissinger's eyes, as well as his tongue, bear a striking resemblance to those of a lizard. These clues suggest that Kissinger may be one of the legendary lizard people. This urban legend was first mentioned by British conspiracy theorist David Icke in his 1999 book, The Biggest Secret. He claimed that these creatures are reptilian humanoid beings from the Alpha Draconis star system in the constellation Draco. According to the author's description, many world leaders are related to lizard people, including the Rothschild family, the Bush family, and of course, Kissinger. The scene then flashes back 3 years earlier, where Eisenhower lying sick in bed, his health failing. His wife Mamie is by his side. Eisenhower watches news reports about the Vietnam War on television and realizes that it's all an alien conspiracy. Reflecting on the actions of the aliens over the years towards the American people, he deeply regrets having signed the treaty with them. It is at this moment that Eisenhower sees Kissinger giving a speech. He urgently reminds Mamie that there are not only aliens like Thor on Earth, but also another kind that has been living among humans for a long time, the lizard people, represented by Kissinger. Eisenhower knows this because the aliens accidentally abducted a lizard person while kidnapping Americans. At the time, the aliens did not inform the U.S. government and instead secretly disposed of the body. They did not want the humans to know that they also had competitors on Earth. Eisenhower continues to wallow in self-pity, constantly saying he should be dead, and this daily negativity makes Mamie very uncomfortable. So, Mamie calls Thor for help. Thor suggests they could take Eisenhower to Area 51, where he could live forever. However, Eisenhower confesses that he felt as though he died when he signed the treaty, and that he no longer wants to live in this world. After this, Eisenhower notices something unusual about Mamie and Thor's relationship, and told them they deserved each other before exiting the world. After kissing Eisenhower goodbye, Mamie tells her massage stick Thor that she doesn't want to end up like Eisenhower. She wants to keep living in this world. The scene shifts back to Nixon in the year 1972. Nixon is drinking again when an agent named Gordon Liddy comes to report. Nixon amiably invites Gordon to sit and then shares his plan. Nixon believes that he is the scapegoat for the alien treaty and fears that if the public finds out about it, he will be the first to take the fall. With anti-war sentiment growing, he is increasingly afraid that the treaty will become public knowledge. So he needs Gordon to sneak into Thor's office at the Watergate complex and find out the aliens' future plans. This is how it leads to the infamous Watergate scandal. After Nixon became president, he wanted to be re-elected. His strategy wasn't to ensure prosperity and peace for the United States, but to take a crooked path by suppressing his opponents, the Democratic Party. He arranged for people to break into the Democratic Party's office in the middle of the night to install listening devices and steal information. The office was in the Watergate building in Washington, D.C., hence the name Watergate Scandal. Nixon's men were caught installing the devices by a security guard. Nixon tried to distance himself from the incident and managed to win re-election. However, due to the Democratic Party's retaliation and continuous leaks to the media, the scandal was eventually exposed, forcing Nixon to resign and making him the first president in U.S. history to do so voluntarily. Rumor has it that because the Democratic Party's office was opposite the Watergate Hotel, a guest who couldn't sleep that night went for a stroll and happened to see several suspicious people with flashlights in the Democratic office. This may remind the audience of a scene in the movie Forrest Gump. In this incident, Gordon Liddy is one of the 5 people who were sent to install the listening devices. Returning to the story, in a parking lot, a man named Bob Woodward appears. He is a reporter for the Washington Post, the same one who exposed the Watergate scandal. To his surprise, he meets with Mamie. Mamie tells Bob she can share everything with him, but on one condition: her name must not be mentioned. She prefers to be referred to as Deep Throat. Historically, there indeed was an FBI agent who leaked information to the media under the alias Deep Throat, motivated by a previous grudge against Nixon. Back to the story, Mamie later finds Thor and tells him that she has met with the reporter 3 times. The reporter is thoroughly convinced that the break-in was at the Democratic Party's office, not Thor's. Mamie's leaks are meant to distract from Nixon's actual target of investigation, which is the aliens. Mamie also poses 2 questions. First, why not simply eliminate Nixon? And second, even if they discredit Nixon now, he might still reveal the alien affair after his presidency. Thor responds that too many politicians have mysteriously disappeared lately. Discrediting Nixon would be more effective than making him vanish. Regarding the second question, Thor cryptically assures her not to worry, implying they have plans to remind Nixon who really is pulling the strings. The scene then switches to Nixon and Kissinger praying in the White House. Kissinger's expression is noticeably off, but Nixon does not catch on. After praying, Nixon asks Kissinger for advice, as everyone now wants him to resign. Kissinger suggests that resigning might indeed be the best option. Nixon is about to confide in Kissinger about the aliens and the treaty, but Kissinger, sensing his cover might be blown, quickly finds an excuse to leave the office. After Kissinger's departure, Nixon repeatedly tells himself that he cannot resign. Then, in a flash of bright light, aliens appear before Nixon and whisk him away, stripping him of his clothes and strapping him to an operating table. The next day, Nixon publicly announces his resignation. Mamie and Thor, watching on television, are elated. Mamie admits that with Nixon's issue resolved, she is considering stepping back from the historical stage since she has achieved all her goals, having promoted various holidays. Now, she just wishes for Thor to grant her the ability to live forever. The drama is vague about Nixon's exact ordeal, merely hinting through Thor's comment that some humans have extreme reactions to simple medical procedures, which possibly indicates that the aliens may have transformed Nixon into a reptile-like being. That way, even if Nixon later speaks about the aliens, no one would believe him. The scene is set in 1979, where Mamie faked news of her death to the public, but in truth, she and Thor had reached Area 51 and entered an alien base. It was there that Mamie met the experimental subject Calico, who recognized her as the First Lady and incessantly expressed her admiration, thus beginning their friendship. Fast forward to the modern storyline, Theta appeared, escorting them to the surgery room, and first calmed them telepathically, as she had done with Troy. She revealed that the previously born specimen was the closest to perfection they'd seen in nearly 60 years, and that one of the children Kendall and Jamie were about to bear would be the perfect being the aliens desired. She quickly found Thor and inquired about the aliens' next plans. Thor revealed that they intended to breed the perfect hybrids en masse until they filled the world. Mamie was puzzled by this filling, but Thor went on to disclose their true intention, saying that the aliens planned to breed a vast number of perfect hybrids to take over Earth. Of course, some humans who had made significant contributions to the aliens would be spared. At that moment, Mamie recalled her husband's warning not to trust aliens easily, but it seemed too late for any precautions. Further, Thor revealed that they had already signed a treaty with the lizard people to share Earth in the future, admiring each other's qualities and advanced technologies. In contrast, humans had nothing to offer. An angry Mamie had no choice but to seek help from Theta, who was half human, half alien. She first hoped to see the newly born perfect hybrid. It was noticeable that the child's eyes were slightly larger than those of a normal human. Mamie commented on the beauty of the child, but then she was startled by the sight of the cyborg. Theta explained that this cyborg should not be seen as a person, but as a machine. An upset Mamie asserted that humans are not machines and should not be exploited. Theta countered that humans had already relinquished most of their control to machines, implying a critique of modern society where people's decisions are heavily influenced by devices like smartphones. Mamie then reminded Theta that she had once said she admired Mamie's husband, Eisenhower, and that he would never want to see humanity destroyed. Theta was taken aback, realizing she was unaware of the impending doom of mankind. Mamie then sought out Calico, hoping Calico would join her in resisting the alien scheme. Upon hearing this, Calico felt that just the two of them stood no chance against the aliens. Mamie continued to explain that they didn't need to take on everyone. Just removing the baby and the mother would thwart the aliens' 60 years of efforts, at least buying humanity more time and awakening them. Besides, they weren't alone. Mamie led Calico and Theta to the birthing operating room. Inside, Kendall's body was nurturing a second child. The aliens had shortened the breeding cycle. After Mamie rallied them once more, she picked up a scalpel and approached the perfect hybrid. But as she was about to strike the infant, Theta suddenly turned on her. It turned out that although Theta was a combination of human and alien and had a human side, she always felt that her human side was her greatest shame. She believed humans were extremely selfish, and even if aliens chose to coexist with humans, deep down, humans would never truly accept them. This could be seen as a satire of mainstream society's attitude towards certain minority groups. Superficial acceptance masked an inability to fully embrace them. At that moment, a controlled Mamie called out desperately to Calico for help, while Theta told Calico that after years of helping the aliens bear children, they would reward her by letting her raise the perfect hybrid. Calico thought about it and slowly approached Mamie, indicating she felt Theta was right. She had seen the good and the evil in humanity and thought it was time to give others a chance. Then, with a raise of her hand, Theta blew up Mamie's head. At that moment, the cyborg gave birth to a second perfect hybrid, which marks the end of the whole drama.